Conflicting narratives in the case of Eugene Lawrence Sr. The case of Eugene Lawrence Sr. presents a clash of narratives. In court, he insists the killings were acts of self-defense, while family members, associates, and community observers describe years of control, intimidation, and alleged criminal enterprise. With accusations ranging from systematic manipulation to sex trafficking and child abuse, coverage must balance the gravity of allegations with careful verification and respect for vulnerable people involved. Courtroom account self-defense and strategy. In court, Lawrence has maintained that the deaths were necessary to defend himself and his family, framing his actions as reactive and lawful. Yet observers report that he also described actions and preparations that suggest deliberate provocation to create a pretext for using deadly force. Prosecutors have framed his testimony as inconsistent with a genuine self-defense claim, arguing that planning and instigation undermine a purely defensive narrative. Family accounts and mental state allegations. Relatives paint a very different picture, describing Lawrence as erratic, violent, and prone to grandiose delusions. Some family members have characterized his behavior as psychotic and dangerous. Accounts of his wife's role diverge sharply. Some portray her as an enabler who participated in controlling victims, while others insist she was herself coerced, trafficked, or abused, and had little ability to resist. Her oldest son paints her as the schemer behind it all, who now helps the oldest son today. In 2014, the wife was charged with felony theft in Olean from years prior, which was pled down to a misdemeanor after stealing $1,000 and 0 cents from a grocery store, closing and disappearing. Observers also allege cult-like dynamics within the household, claiming the oldest son adopted similar behaviors that suggest intergenerational indoctrination and normalization of abuse. Allegations of organized exploitation and abuse. Friends and associates report recruitment through intimidation, drug use, and fear tactics, describing systematic efforts to control people connected to the household. Reports that multiple passports, false identifications, and isolated women were present in the home have been cited as consistent with trafficking patterns, though the women in question have not publicly spoken. Some sources allege women were confined in parts of the home and that children were exposed to or were victims of sexual abuse. These are serious accusations that remain contested and require careful corroboration. Family members state crimes resembling war crimes POWs faced were normal for the wife and children. Rumors have also surfaced the wife was also involved in sex work and a homicide from associates, as well as accounts of the wife disposing of a rifle upon the husband's last arrest. Evidence, witnesses, and gaps. Publicly disclosed forensic evidence tying Lawrence to a premeditated criminal conspiracy appears limited, and available police reports and witness statements in the public record are sparse, complicating the task of establishing a fully verified narrative. A lack of on-the-record witness cooperation has made it harder for outside observers to reconcile court testimony with private allegations. Competing explanations exist. Some point to prison gang affiliations, reputation management, or underground economies as drivers of alleged criminal acts, while others contend the household's internal coercive dynamics were the central mechanism for control and abuse. County hopping and avoidance of child protective services. Multiple accounts describe a pattern of frequent moves between counties and across state lines, which sources say may have been a deliberate strategy to frustrate investigations and avoid sustained involvement from child protective services and local law enforcement. Frequent relocations can create jurisdictional gaps, delay case transfers, and make it harder for investigators to track complaints, custody histories, or service records. Sources suggest the moves were intended to keep children out of long-term protective oversight and to reset relationships with social services, complicating efforts to document patterns of abuse or coercion. Practical indicators that reporters and investigators should seek to corroborate include school enrollment and transfer records, medical and vaccination histories, change of address filings, shelter or motel receipts, and CPS case transfer or closure documents. Because relocation alone is not proof of wrongdoing, responsible reporting should present such movement as an alleged tactic and corroborate it with records rather than implication alone. Legal and ethical guidelines for reporting. Reporting should use precise attribution, labeling contested claims as allegations, and tying them to specific sources or official filings. Journalists and investigators must prioritize the anonymity and safety of alleged trafficking survivors, minors, and coerced witnesses, and verify allegations through court records, CPS documents, and statements from law enforcement and counsel before publishing. Avoiding sensationalism is essential. Lurid or unverified details should not be repeated as fact, and mental health characterizations should rely on medical or court-determined findings rather than family impressions. Conclusion. Courtroom claims of self-defense sit against troubling allegations of manipulation, trafficking-style control, repeated relocations that may have impeded oversight, and intergenerational patterns of abuse. The seriousness of these allegations demands careful, evidence-driven reporting and sensitive handling of vulnerable people while the legal process unfolds. Resolving the starkly different narratives will require patient investigation, access to records, and protection for anyone who may have been coerced or harmed.